In the scorching Nevada desert, 726 feet of concrete stand between the Colorado River and complete catastrophe. The Hoover Dam. You've seen the pictures. You might have even visited. But here's what the tour guides won't tell you. During its construction, 112 workers officially died. Heat stroke, falls, explosions, all documented, all accounted for. But here's the question that's haunted this structure for nearly 90 years. How many workers are still inside the dam itself, entombed in concrete, their bodies never recovered, their deaths never officially recorded? This isn't just conspiracy theory folklore. This is a question with documented evidence, suspicious gaps in construction records, and testimony from workers' families who watched their loved ones disappear into the desert, never to return home. The Hoover Dam isn't just an engineering marvel. It might also be America's largest concrete tomb. And tonight, we're going to explore why that might actually be true. Welcome to the hidden history of America's infrastructure. This is the story of the Hoover Dam and the bodies that might still be waiting inside. The year is 1928. The Colorado River is a problem. Every spring, snowmelt from the Rocky Mountains sends billions of gallons of water cascading through 7 states, flooding farms, destroying towns, and making the American Southwest nearly impossible to develop. Meanwhile, cities like Los Angeles are growing at an explosive rate, desperate for water and electricity. Something has to be done. Congress authorizes the Boulder Canyon Project Act, and engineers begin surveying Black Canyon, a remote gorge on the Nevada-Arizona border where the Colorado River cuts through solid rock. The plan is audacious, maybe impossible. Build the tallest dam in the world. Create the largest reservoir ever constructed. Generate enough electricity to power entire cities. And do it all in one of the most hostile environments on Earth, where summer temperatures regularly exceed 120 degrees. But here's what most people don't know about the early planning stages. The initial surveys of Black Canyon discovered something troubling. The rock walls weren't as stable as they appeared. Fractures ran deep into the canyon walls. Loose rock hung precariously hundreds of feet above where workers would be stationed. Engineers calculated that without extensive preparation, rockfalls would kill dozens, maybe hundreds of workers before construction even began. The solution? High-scalers. Men would dangle from ropes hundreds of feet in the air, using jackhammers and dynamite to strip away loose rock. It was dangerous work, and it would set the tone for everything that followed. This project would demand sacrifices, human sacrifices. The first death came before construction officially started. J.G. Tierney, a surveyor, drowned in the Colorado River on December 20th, 1922, while conducting preliminary surveys. His death was recorded. His body was recovered. He would be the last worker whose death was handled with such care. Construction officially began on April 20th, 1931. 6 Companies, Inc., a consortium of construction firms, won the bid with an impossibly aggressive timeline. They had 7 years to complete the project. They promised to finish in 5. The pressure was immediate and relentless. Workers flooded into the desert. At peak construction, more than 5,000 men worked around the clock in brutal conditions. The government built Boulder City, a temporary town to house workers and their families. But Boulder City couldn't accommodate everyone. Hundreds of men lived in ramshackle settlements along the canyon rim, in tents that offered no protection from the murderous heat or the winter cold that could drop temperatures below freezing. The work began with the river diversion tunnels. 4 massive tunnels, each 56 feet in diameter, had to be blasted through solid rock to redirect the Colorado River around the construction site. This meant drilling, dynamiting, and excavating in confined spaces filled with dust, carbon monoxide from machinery, and temperatures that regularly exceeded 130 degrees inside the tunnels. Men started dying almost immediately. Heat prostration, they called it. Carbon monoxide poisoning. Dynamite accidents. Rockfalls. The official records show these deaths. What they don't always show is how the bodies were handled, or if bodies were always recovered at all. Here's where things get strange. Workers began reporting that accident scenes were cleared with unusual speed. When a man fell, when an explosion occurred, when a rockfall buried workers, supervisors would sometimes cordon off the area, document the death, but never produce a body. Families were told their loved ones had been buried in the desert, in Las Vegas somewhere, but graves were never shown. Search certificates sometimes listed vague causes or locations. Then came the concrete pours. Starting in June 1933, concrete began flowing into the canyon. But this wasn't a simple process. The Hoover Dam contains 3.25 million cubic yards of concrete. If poured continuously, it would have taken over 100 years to cure without cracking from the heat generated by the chemical reaction. Engineers solved this by pouring the dam in interlocking blocks, each block containing embedded cooling pipes that circulated cold water to control the curing process. It was ingenious. It was also incredibly dangerous. Workers operated on narrow platforms suspended over wet concrete. They guided massive buckets, each containing 8 cubic yards of concrete weighing 16 tons, as they were lowered by cable from the canyon rim. Accidents were inevitable. A cable snaps. A platform collapses. A worker loses balance. And then what? According to official records, if a worker fell into wet concrete, work stopped. The concrete was excavated, and the body was recovered. Always, without exception. But workers told different stories. They spoke of pours that continued despite screams, of supervisors who calculated that stopping a pour would cost more than a life,
of entire sections of the dam that workers refused to go near because they knew what was inside.
Let's talk about the numbers that don't add up. 112 official deaths. That number has been repeated for 90 years. But here's the problem. Construction employment records show significant discrepancies. Workers who signed in but never signed out. Families who came looking for men who had simply vanished. Time cards that stopped being punched without explanation or termination paperwork. In 1933, a particularly brutal summer, the death rate spiked. Official records show 12 deaths from heat prostration in July and August alone. But hospital admission records from Boulder City show treatment for dozens of men suffering from heat-related illness who were never seen again. Where did they go? If they recovered, why aren't they in employment records? If they died, why aren't they in the death count? Then there's the testimony of Patricia Lowe, whose grandfather worked as a concrete finisher. In a 1998 interview, she described her grandfather's nightmares, his refusal to ever discuss the dam, his insistence that terrible things happened in the lower sections. On his deathbed, he told her about a night shift in October 1934, when a young worker, a Mexican immigrant whose name he couldn't remember, fell from a platform into a block that had just been poured. The superintendent made a calculation. Stopping the pour would delay the project by days. Excavating the concrete would waste thousands of dollars. The worker had no family in the United States. No one would ask questions. The pour continued. My grandfather said he could hear the man screaming for almost a minute before the concrete covered him completely. The next day, that block was marked as completed. Work continued as if nothing had happened. Could this be true? Let's examine the evidence. First, the concrete blocks in the lower sections of the dam were poured in layers. Each layer was between 5 and 7 feet thick. A person falling into wet concrete would sink, but not immediately disappear. They would struggle, creating air pockets and disturbances. But concrete is heavy and viscous. Escaping would be nearly impossible without immediate help. Second, the cooling pipes embedded in the concrete created a complex internal structure. X-rays or ground-penetrating radar could theoretically detect anomalies, but the dam has never been comprehensively scanned. The density variations from the cooling pipes, the interlocking blocks, and the reinforcing steel would make identifying human remains extremely difficult. Third, and most damning, are the classified sections. In 1957, the Bureau of Reclamation conducted structural integrity tests on the dam. Certain blocks in the lower sections showed unexpected density variations. These blocks were marked in internal documents as requiring monitoring. But here's the strange part. Those documents were classified for over 30 years. When they were finally released in the 1990s, entire sections were redacted. Why? What did those density variations reveal? Frank Crow, the project superintendent, was known for his ruthless efficiency. He pushed workers harder than any construction boss in American history. He demanded speed above all else.
Multiple workers reported that Crow told them directly that the project was more important than individual lives, that delays were unacceptable, that the dam would be finished on time, no matter the cost. In 1935, a series of accidents occurred in rapid succession. On March 7th, a cable snapped, dropping a concrete bucket into a pour that was already underway. The bucket crushed a platform where 3 workers were standing. Official records state 2 workers died instantly, and the third was critically injured. But hospital admission records showed treatment for no survivor that day. Were there really 3 deaths? If so, why does the official count only list 2? And if the third man survived, why is there no record of his treatment or recovery? Then there's the matter of the inspection tunnels. The dam contains a network of galleries and tunnels that allow engineers to access the interior for maintenance and monitoring. But there are sections of these tunnels that are permanently sealed. Officially, these sections were closed because they were structurally unstable or no longer necessary. But workers who helped seal these sections reported something different. They said certain galleries smelled wrong, that the concrete in specific areas had unusual discoloration, that they were ordered to seal these sections quickly and never speak about what they'd seen.
Despite everything, despite the deaths and the mysteries and the brutal conditions, the Hoover Dam was completed ahead of schedule. President Franklin Roosevelt dedicated the dam on September 30th, 1935, though concrete pouring continued until May 29th, 1936. It was hailed as one of the greatest engineering achievements in human history. It proved that American ingenuity could conquer nature itself. The dam created Lake Mead, the largest reservoir in the United States, holding enough water to cover the entire state of Connecticut 10 feet deep. It generated 4 billion kilowatt-hours of electricity annually, powering Las Vegas, Los Angeles, and Phoenix. It controlled flooding that had devastated communities for centuries. By every measurable standard, it was a triumph. But the human cost was carefully managed in the official narrative. 112 deaths. That became the official number, repeated in every dedication speech, every commemorative plaque, every historical account. The deaths were acknowledged as tragic but necessary sacrifices. The workers were honored as heroes who gave their lives for American progress. What wasn't mentioned were the workers who simply disappeared, the families who never got answers, the graves that contained empty coffins, the sections of the dam that workers refused to approach. The official story was clean, heroic, inspiring. The truth was considerably more complicated. The last official death occurred on December 20th, 1935, exactly 13 years after the first death. Patrick Tierney, the son of J.G. Tierney, the surveyor who drowned in the preliminary surveys, fell from an intake tower and died. The symmetry was noted. The father's death marked the beginning. The son's death marked the end. It made for a neat narrative, perhaps too neat. Today, the Hoover Dam stands as it has for nearly 90 years, Over 7 million people visit annually. They marvel at the Art Deco design, the massive turbines, the stunning views of Black Canyon. Tour guides share stories of the engineering challenges, the innovative techniques, the triumph of human determination. But they don't talk about the bodies. But the mystery persists. In 2010, the History Channel produced a documentary about the dam. They brought in ground-penetrating radar equipment to scan sections of the structure. The results were inconclusive but intriguing. Multiple anomalies were detected in the lower sections, density variations that didn't match the engineering specifications. The Bureau of Reclamation declined to comment on the findings. They also declined permission for more extensive testing. Engineers who work on the dam's maintenance speak carefully about certain sections. They acknowledge that the dam contains surprises, unexpected features that weren't in the original blueprints. They explain this as the result of on-the-fly modifications during construction, adaptations to challenges that arose during the build. But some workers, speaking off the record, suggest something different. They talk about blocks that feel wrong, sections that have unusual acoustic properties, areas where equipment malfunctions for no apparent reason. The truth is, we may never know exactly how many people died building the Hoover Dam. The official count of 112 is almost certainly low. How much lower? That's the question. Conservative estimates based on employment record discrepancies and family testimonies suggest the real number could be as high as 140 or 150. More aggressive estimates, factoring in rumors and unverified accounts, push the number over 200. How many of those deaths resulted in bodies being entombed in concrete? That's even harder to answer. But the evidence suggests at least a handful. The testimony from workers' families, the sealed inspection tunnels, the classified structural reports, the density anomalies. The pieces don't prove anything conclusively, but they paint a picture that's hard to ignore. The Hoover Dam represents both the best and worst of American ambition. It showcases our ability to accomplish the impossible, to bend nature to our will, to build monuments that last generations. But it also reveals our willingness to sacrifice individuals for collective progress, to hide uncomfortable truths, to sanitize history until it reflects the story we want to tell, rather than the reality of what actually happened. So the next time you see an image of the Hoover Dam, that gleaming white concrete standing against the desert sky, remember that it's more than an engineering marvel. It's a monument built with human sacrifice. Some of those sacrifices are commemorated with plaques and memorials. Others remain hidden, sealed in concrete, their stories erased from official records. The bodies in the Hoover Dam, if they exist, will never be recovered. The concrete has cured for 90 years. It's harder than the rock surrounding it. even if we knew exactly where to look, excavating would compromise the dam's structural integrity. Those workers, if they're in there, are entombed forever, silent witnesses to the price of American progress. And the Hoover Dam isn't unique. Across America, massive infrastructure projects, from the Golden Gate Bridge to the Holland Tunnel to the Empire State Building, have their own dark histories, their own suspicious death counts, their own rumors of bodies that were never found. Each one is a story of ambition and sacrifice, of official narratives and hidden truths. Next time, we'll explore another piece of American infrastructure with secrets buried in its foundation. We'll head east to New York City and examine the mysteries beneath the Brooklyn Bridge. Who really died during its construction? What happened to the workers who descended into the underwater caissons and never returned? And why do construction workers still refuse to work in certain sections of the bridge's foundation? If you want to uncover more hidden infrastructure stories, subscribe to this channel. The structures we take for granted have histories we've been taught to forget. But the truth is still there, waiting to be discovered. Sometimes literally buried in concrete. Until next time, remember that every bridge you cross, every tunnel you drive through, every dam that holds back the water was built by human hands. And sometimes those hands never made it home.